So we've got 6 o'clock, so we'll start rolling along with this if we can. Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Woodbury County Board of Adjustments. Today is March 5th, 2018, and the time is 6 o'clock. Tonight's meeting will be audio taped and the minutes will be prepared. In respect to all parties, we ask that those present turn off their cell phones or set to vibrate. Those in attendance are asked to legibly complete the attendance sheet upon the front table. I'd like to take a moment to review the procedures that the board will follow tonight. First, the board will handle normal housekeeping agenda items. Then for each applicant on the agenda, I will open the public hearing on them. The planning and zoning staff will then present the staff report, including staff recommendation. Any letters or other communication received from the public prior to the hearing will be entered into the record. The applicant will then have an opportunity to present his or her case and respond to the staff report. Next, we will hear comments from the public. If you would like to speak either in support or against the application, you must come to the microphone. Please first state your name and address for the record. All interested parties shall be heard, but repetitious comments should be avoided. Repetitious or irrelevant comments may be ruled out of order by the chair. We ask that you remain respectful and courteous with your comments at all times. After all public comments have been heard, the staff and applicant may make a closing statement. The hearing shall then be closed by a motion and a vote. Thereafter, further comments from the staff, public, or applicant may be heard. No further comments from the staff, public, or applicant may be heard unless asked for by the board. The board shall then deliberate the case and may ask questions of the applicant, the staff, or any party offering testimony. However, such questions do not reopen the hearing for additional comments from the public unless so requested or approved by the board. The board will then formulate and vote on a motion. The motion will typically either grant or deny the requested application. Any board member who has an ex parte communication to place in the record of this meeting should do so prior to the beginning of deliberation of the respective general agenda item. Any persons desiring to appeal the board's decision to a court of record may do so within 30 days after the filing of this decision with the Planning and Zoning Office. So our first agenda item is the election of the Board of Adjustments, chairperson and vice chairperson, 2018.
I would like to nominate Bob. Would you?
I think I'm going to request that I not be nominated or reject the nomination. Just give somebody else.
Are you thinking about it, or are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. Give somebody else a shot. I've done it for a couple of terms here, and in light of recent things that have happened, I think I could probably be better served not sitting here. So
You interested in doing that?
I do not want to chair. I really don't. Yeah.
I've been at sea once or twice.
Well,
I was on P and Z. I'd rather not. Wouldn't you?
No, I really don't want to. This is my last year anyway, believe it or not, I'm going
Oh, I will, I guess.
So we have a nomination.
to, I'll nominate Dwight.
Okay. Any further nominations? So we'll need a motion to cease nominations then.
I'll make a motion to cease nominations.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to cease nominations with Dwight being the board chair. So we do a ballot on that then, or is that even necessary with one nomination?
We can raise hands to whatever you want to do.
Whatever you feel more comfortable, you guys want to do ballots or just,
Let's do just the way it was laid out in the agenda. That way,
okay. Just don't write in Mickey Mouse or
Well, what about the assistant chair?
we'll do that afterwards, I believe, won't we? Probably. Bob, get a vote?
Who are we
Well,
going to you?
I think probably David. I'm good.
Oh, Dan should do that.
All the votes are
Get
in.
a vote?
Yeah, I'll be the tiebreaker. If there's a tie, I'll jump in.
You want me to read them?
Dawn.
Here we go. We have one for Dwight, one for Katie, one for Dwight, one more for Dwight, and another for Dwight. So 3 Dwight, 1 Katie.
Okay. So it looks like Dwight's going to be our board chair. So
Congratulations.
I relinquish, or do we want to do the vice while I'm still up here? Okay.
Stay
So-
there for the meeting.
So we'll look for somebody to give a nomination for the vice chairman, please.
I nominate Katie.
The second half.
All right. Any further nominations? So we'll need a motion that the nominations cease. Motion and
Second.
a second. And there again, we probably should just do the ballot just to maintain with what they've
Sure.
laid out for us.
Here, I think you gave us. Take it. So, yeah, we need to vote on
Unless you get a vote twice.
that. Here, okay, here we go. Joanne and Bob. Sure.
How many?
Here we go.
This time around? Probably you're on at least your third year, aren't you?
You're up on, at the end of 2020.
Oh.
This is just the start of the
Okay, so for vice chair, we have one for Tom, one for Katie, 2 for Katie, 3 and 4 for Katie.
Okay. Well, my concession speech would be, I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you for
Maybe
doing
next
it.
time around I'll jump in again, but
Just stay there for the
I just
meeting.
need to take a break from it. Pardon me?
Stay there for the meeting.
I think you have to take it from the.
You're going to run it from there? Yeah, you better run it from up here. We want to have everything formal.
Where's your cheat sheet?
Don't have one. Been flying by the,
So now we're down to the second agenda item. Any citizen wishing to be heard regarding a non-agenda item, please step forward. There are none. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the board's February 5, 2018 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve, and a second. All in favor, say aye. I will abstain because I wasn't here. so-
aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining now.
Okay. 3, 4, 2 abstentions. Minutes are approved. Next item is a public hearing for RJ Tide Construction Incorporated. The consideration of a conditional use permit to use property as a construction contractor yard. And they give a GIS parcel number on the minutes. So Dan, are you gonna read the?
We'll open the public hearing.
Right.
Okay. David Gleiser, Director, Community Economic Development Department. The applicant is RJ Tide Construction Company. They're a concrete contractor company with property located at 1821 US Highway 20, Lawton, Iowa, 51030. They've filed for a conditional use permit because their current zoning district, which is general commercial, does not include an allowed use for a construction contractor yard. And in order to conduct their daily business operations, which includes the storage of materials and equipment not limited to rebar, concrete forms, and skid loaders, they will need the approval of a conditional use permit. The gist of this situation is that the applicant property is less than the 3-acre requirement for a rezoning to a light industrial, where a construction contractor yard is a permitted use. In addition, because of the neighborhood and the residential development to the north of the property, trying to keep the integrity of the neighborhood, to have a residential sort of, feel. Staff recommendation to the applicant during the initial pre-application meeting was to not seek a rezone for a light industrial, but rather to a conditional use permit. So just in case, if the property owners ever decided to sell, we wouldn't get a potential heavier industrial type user that might move in and have an impact on the integrity of the area, of the residential development. And I guess it's worth noting that building materials is an allowed use in the general commercial zoning district. We have a number of businesses that are not technically construction contractors, but do have outdoor storage of the materials that they use in the normal operations of their business, and that is an allowed use. From staff and other county department concerns, we tapped the relevant county departments as we normally do in these sort of situations. We had no feedback or concerns from any other relevant departments. The only concern at the staff level from our office was that we were just sort of wanted to have some sort of assurance that if the application for the permit was approved, just a consideration to the sake of safety, not wanting any criminal activity, anybody on the property stealing their building materials. And the applicant in the public hearing with the zoning commission made it very clear that they have adequate amount of lighting on the property to light the property, as well as security cameras on the property to assure, I guess they don't have any concerns as it relates to security. The zoning commission did grant approval, or did make the recommendation to pass this on to you folks for approval with no additional conditions bestowed upon them. The applicants themselves are in the audience if you have any questions from them. We have not received any comments or questions from any of the surrounding property owners. The applicants did provide the affidavit with all the nearby property owners as required. And as of today, we haven't heard from anybody against this in the neighborhood. So staff recommendation would be for the board to consider approval of this application. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer those.
You mentioned something about criminal activity. What were you-
Someone out there trying to steal their stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, so what's the property that's right next to it?
The property next door is the former owner of the building, the Craig Hillinger.
So, was there a recent transaction to sell it to our applicant?
These folks acquired the property last year.
about a year ago.
Russ Bertrand with RJ Tide Construction, 1821 US Highway 20. We purchased the property just under a year ago from Craig Hillinger with Healy Auto Works. And we just, at the time, he was surprised that he actually thought it was zoned light industrial. The way we operate our business, we operate well under the general commercial, but given the nature, we are a contractor. So this is kind of a technical, where we just want to make sure we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's, and we're operating within the zoning requirements. So we decided to go with the special. We thought the special use permit was a very happy compromise, because it protects the integrity of nobody coming in after us and doing something, you know, more offensive, and we operate pretty much in the same fashion that Craig did out there in terms of what we have stockpiled and kind of stored as materials and trailers and stuff.
So what's your nature of your business?
We are a full-service concrete contractor.
Concrete, did you say?
Concrete, yeah. We don't batch, ready mix or anything like that. We basically what we store, we try and keep most of our material and everything on job sites. That's what makes us the most money. We sometimes have some extra rebar we may have stockpiled in the back of the building. We will occasionally have some tool trailers, things like that we'll park. And again, it's really nothing too objectionable. It's kind of, like I said, it looks very much like it did when Craig was operating the place. But given the nature of our business, we just wanted to make sure that we fell within proper zoning.
What did he operate the business as?
What, excuse me?
What the prior owner, what was,
He was a classic car restoration company
okay, and he's still doing that in the
in the
adjoining
building adjacent.
And that falls into the proper category of zoning, even being smaller like it is?
You're
So he-
pretty much going to keep operating this way you have the last year or so, right?
Yes. Yeah, we just decided that it was best to get it done. When we bought it, it took us a while to get moved in and get situated, and then we said it was time to kind of get everything cleaned up. And much in the same way that in the event we ever sold, you know, that's why we're doing the special use permit. We always looked at it and said Craig was kind of under the assumption that it had already been light industrial. But if he would ever to sell, we want to make sure we don't get into a wrinkle with anybody that might buy the property, so we wanted to make sure we secured it while he still owned it.
So that parcel, that must have been subdivided then.
It was split.
So that was and the property line runs down the middle between the buildings?
It runs between the buildings, correct.
There's storage units on the west side? Do you
There
rent
are.
storage or something?
Icon, well, the former Icon, now it's agribusiness. They store a whole bunch of lawnmowers and stuff in there, in the one building. The other
So you rent
building,
that to them or something?
yeah, we do rent that to them. The other building that's there, we're slowly phasing out all of the outside tenants, and we basically do them internal to employees. We just kind of has it as an employee perk where we let people do. It's amazing to me how many of my guys have stuff that their wives want out of their garage. And so we do that as kind of an employee perk. And then the last building we use as storage for ourselves at this point.
The big building, the back part of your
big-
office there,
Yeah.
you say you have storage in there or something like that?
It's the farthest building, looking at the northwest, it's a separate detached building. Yeah, we've been, right now I think it's empty, but we were storing welded wire mesh in there we're using it as a place to store material while we stage it to projects. So we do so much of anything we keep under roof, because
Don't wanna
what
get
we do,
rusty.
it keeps everything in better condition, so.
Back to the storage buildings, is that three that are on the west side of the property? Where they look like there's a bunch of stalls, is that the one that we were talking about, they store mowers in and stuff like that?
Correct. The first one is it's the shortest of the bunch.
Well, I guess I don't know what,
The ones that
these
are-
buildings right
The
there.
three that are on the west side of the property.
Correct.
Yeah, they're the storage buildings, right?
Correct.
But you don't lease them to people or anything like
The,
that?
the first one that runs north and south,
That one?
you can see if you point.
This one here?
Looking at there.
Yes, that one you just point to. That one is being rented under, when we purchased the property, there was a lease on that with Icon Ag.
Okay.
And it basically transferred over with the sale. Icon Ag, they just sold out to Agrivision, and so they're continuing that lease.
Okay. What about those other two buildings back there?
The second building, the southern one that runs east-west,
Okay.
there were some existing tenants that came when we transferred that. We're about half outside tenants and half internal tenants with my own employees that are renting those, as we're basically employee perk it. And then the third building, we're using entirely for our own storage, just to store materials.
The reason I was asking, because sometimes people do some nefarious things and they get these storage lockers. And you mentioned criminal activity, that's what
triggered my thought.
When we bought it, we basically went in, we made them open up every unit to make sure we saw what was in there and what was going on
Okay.
for that exact purpose. What was in there and the people that are using it for is pretty mundane. It was kind of surprising when one of them was completely empty and somebody was paying, I don't know. It's just, we called them and they said, well, we're getting ready to move some cars in type of stuff. And so it varies. People are funny that way, but they're all been quiet and
My mind went to people that make meth are looking for places to make meth, you know? And I know in another county that I used to work in, that we found that to happen in some of those storage units and stuff.
at this point, I personally know probably 75% of them from just personally, and then the other ones that I don't know personally that I've been into, you couldn't fit an extra square inch into them. He's got them packed so full of stuff.
So just based off of the fact that we don't have a definition in the ordinance as it relates to this particular business use, it does seem a little subjective in the terms of it being a construction contractor yard, but then outdoor storage of building materials.
That's the catchphrase that throws us into this mix.
It's the construction. So after being on site, the property is, orderly, well-kept, and primarily used as the office for the business. And so it's where the employees report, the offices are there, and it's already been being used as storage. So basically, they're just asking for the board's blessing on being able to use some space for outdoor material.
In this zoning, is there a problem with vehicles and trailers and equipment on them sitting outside? Okay. Are there any other
Maybe
conditions?
inside, too,
Yeah, but I mean, if they come in from the job site, park their trailers and stuff like that's gonna be, to be expected somewhat occasionally.
We
Yeah.
didn't see a lot of issues, but it really kind of came down to is we wanted to avoid any future circumstance where somebody says, you're a contractor and you're not in the right zoning, so.
Mhm.
it
Good
was-
thinking.
It was one of those where you said, Craig knew what his intent was when he's like, I would have swore it was zoned properly, so we're just, like I said, we're just kind of getting through the technicality of it to make sure that we don't have any problems in the future.
So any conditions, David, were just not excessive storage outside of the building equipment then?
The really only concern that I had was just for the, I guess, the safety and assurance of their own property. And property owners felt pretty comfortable with, with the lighting. And that was my recommendation would be, the lighting and the thoughts of security and those.
If I remember right, there's not fencing around it. I didn't go over to look at it, but I've been by it a number of times. Just-
It's a pretty good neighborhood for the stuff that we do have outside. If somebody's gonna come take that stuff, they're gonna go through the fence. I mean,
There's some steel out behind that building and some concrete. And the only thing, I walked around the property when I went out there and looked at it. And the other thing I had a concern, other than those storage units, but who might rent, was sometimes contractors pile stuff on property that would have a runoff, that would have some material there. There's a stream to the west of you, and that's where all that land drains. And I was wondering if the wrong type, like asphalt, if asphalt was by there, you want to control the runoff, you want to capture it, you want to make sure you contain it as a.
We would still be susceptible to all, as we already
Yes, sir.
are. We're susceptible to all DNR and EPA rules, and to the extent where one of what is the shop area, which is the attached sidecar building there in between, that's where he did a lot of his auto mechanic work. He has a little wash bay in there when we purchased the property. He was using it, basically, he was washing off, $250,000 cars that had a slight film of dust. Well, we're in there, and when we wash things off, they're a little bit, grubbier. So he did not have a sand grease interceptor installed. We went in and installed that first thing before we would use it, because we're not gonna get pinched by EPA rules for not following proper
So you
procedure.
have it removed or pumped out every so often?
And we just actually had it, we wait for it to fill up, and it's the only thing that goes into that interceptor is just that bay, so when it fills up, we know, and we go get it pumped. Most of the the concrete pile that you're actually mentioning was left over from when we bought the property from Craig. And we've been remodeling, we've actually torn out some of the old asphalt and some of the junkier stuff and been improving it, so as we're tearing some stuff out, we're stockpiling it through the winter, and then we'll haul it off in the spring. We just don't like having piles of junk laying around, it actually.
Well, it's good, you're aware of the DNR regs.
Yep. Oh,
And
and,
containment, so.
yep, very much so.
When Healy, I believe that building to the east was the most recent addition, and he had to get a conditional use permit to put that up. And,
This
because it's so close to the property line. Yeah, further, next one to the right. The one with the white building.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh.
Is that setting right on the property line like that?
Main building now, isn't it? The heater room.
But,
Yeah, it's,
so property lines association with that's not a problem or concern then? Okay.
when we purchased the property, we did all the access easements and everything else, so there's entry easements and all of that, it's already established, so.
Any other questions about?
Can't think of any questions I'd have. Looking for a motion, or I'll make a motion, we close the hearing?
Second, got a motion to close the hearing, and,
Didn't have any more comments to add, nothing else?
So what's already said?
all fair say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Meeting's officially closed.
Thank you very much.
So, we want to make a motion about the, proposal?
Oh,
I think all my questions are
The
answered.
analysis that you have on, for issues like this, was, if you've written an analysis and you brought some things up about certain things in your analysis, those usually go into the,
they were already addressed, though. They were primarily about security, and
yeah,
it seems like they were already addressed before the application was even submitted.
okay.
Um,
Well, the staff supports this proposed, very last paragraph is what I was thinking
Oh.
of more than anything that's more germane to the CUP. The conditional use permit. So that should probably be a part of the approval process, or the approval of the, what is it called, motion.
To what are you referring, Dwight? I'm sorry.
What's that?
I wasn't following you. To what were you
This
referring?
last paragraph, the staff supports this proposed, CUP request. Yeah. It kind of summarizes everything that we've been talking about.
Oh. The last paragraph of the staff analysis and recommendation, the second page in of the,
And it talks about, well, importantly, the property owners might consider steps to ensure the current structure of property, and may consider enhancing property security, adequate nighttime lighting. So that's something that, you don't want to have a attractive nuisance or anything like that, so the lighting's okay and everything like that, and that summarizes it, and that, this is summarized in here.
Yeah.
And, we can make another statement that there's not an issue about some lighting and stuff like that, to modify that last paragraph.
Need to be any wording in there with the motion to approve? I think that's pretty well covered.
Yeah, so the last Monday, the zoning commission voted unanimously to support the conditional use permit request. They determined that the proposed use would be acceptable within the general commercial district. So I guess we could say that the motion to approve the conditional use permit,
Doesn't really need a whole lot on, does it?
no, I mean, as proposed or as presented.
There you go. I'll make the motion that we accept the conditional use permit as proposed.
I'll second.
We got a motion on the table to approve the CUP as proposed and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried.
No.
I think we're done. You got your change.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
Good night.
Safe trip home.
Yeah. Take
We've
care.
got a next item on, agenda item 5, board schedule meeting date and time.
That's been tabled a couple of times. I think we had
You were here-
conversation from the board.
I wasn't here last time.
Mhm.
Well, one time we were talking about meeting at the same time as our supervisors meeting or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, so
I wasn't too crazy about that.
that's, we, you know, during the budget hearings, all the department directors have been charged with the task of coming up with ways to save money, increase efficiencies, and save money. So one of the things that I've looked at, and it was, you know, in the last month or so, here at the courthouse, especially with the Board of Supervisors and the sheriff, courthouse security has been a hot topic, and it's been an item of discussion. When I looked at the schedule back in November for the upcoming year of Board of Adjustment and Zoning Commission meetings, as scheduled on Mondays at 6, we were going to run into an issue where there were going to be 4 potential meetings that would be on a Monday that would be in conflict with a holiday or a pretty normal day off in terms of like a New Year's Eve or something like that. And so with looking at if we moved Board of Adjustment meetings and Zoning Commission meetings to Tuesdays, because the courthouse is open Tuesday evenings, there'd be some cost savings because security would already be here. So we wouldn't have to pay for security 2 Mondays and 4 Tuesdays. We could just pay for security 4 Tuesdays. The Zoning Commission agreed that they'd be in favor of moving their meetings to Tuesdays. If the Board of Adjustment would be so inclined to do so, we would go ahead and implement that next month. The Zoning Commission has planned to start their meetings on the last Tuesday of every month at 6, and that's kind of where we're at.
What time?
I have a conflict
6.
on Tuesdays, about 7 months out of the year. And the earliest I can be is about 7.
Okay.
What time were you talking?
6.
We could, I guess, 6 is, yes.
You said call you?
About 7 months out of the year.
On that first Tuesday of the month?
Every Tuesday.
Oh, well.
You're busy.
They're very busy.
I have conflicts on Monday and Tuesday, but it's nothing I can work around. There's certain things I do on Mondays, but it's once a month, or once every week, but I do other things to get around it. Tuesday, sometimes I have some conflicts on Tuesdays at maybe every 2 weeks or something like that, and it lasts from 6 to maybe 8.
Hmm.
And that would be kind of difficult, because it's a group that are pulled together to do something special. You know that.
My poker night's on Wednesday, so.
Well, I have a group of 8 to 10 people that we do, we shoot, supposed to encourage.
I have no conflict with either night, so
Don't
it
either.
doesn't matter to me. I'm easy going.
Schedule
but-
with the hockey records, but they have that available, so they gotta use it. But, you know, I can work around it, I guess. Monday nights I have similar problems too. Start working on that, I always have.
Well, I realize,
Yeah, one time they were talking about starting at the same time as supervisors meetings, which I was a little crazy about, for the reason that I think it makes it difficult for people. The planning and zoning commission meetings that we used to get a lot of people down for those subdivisions and stuff like that. And to have people try to get in a parking garage or something like that, you know. Now, after, was it 5 o'clock? After 5 o'clock, parking's free on the street, and it makes it easier for people to get down, find a place to park within walking distance. So I wouldn't be
you're talking about 4:30 starting with the supervisors meeting is going on, I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't work for the staff, because, you know, I routinely have an agenda
Yeah,
item on the board meeting, so. I guess it's, you know, and I realize that, you folks signed up, with the current meeting schedule and time. And so, you know, if you have, plans, with your, you know, schedules that it doesn't work, I understand that. And, wouldn't want you to not be able to serve because of that, so. I'm flexible with whatever you folks would like. It was just something that when we were looking at, the budget.
Could you maybe keep it on your calendar to revisit it regularly? And then where it's at right now, Mondays seem to be where it's been. I can really appreciate the reasonings for it, and they're good, solid, valid reasons, but like you said, you know, those that it has conflicts with signed up with it on Monday nights.
And we've had a holiday, usually we just
Move to the following Monday.
Yeah.
Well, if the group is, like to keep the same meeting schedule, that's what we'll do.
Is that a night that needs a vote?
No,
Okay.
just need consensus from you folks.
I'm good with that anyhow, like I say, I'm pretty flexible, so.
Yeah.
Just-
I could prefer I'm retired, you know.
You're busier when you're retired than you're working. You've got a schedule when you're working, you can fit it in.
Sometimes I get people that we can pay and stuff for those nights, so I don't like to let them down. So for now, we'll just leave it on
You bet.
Monday at 6 o'clock.
That'll work.
First Monday of the month.
That'll work.
What was it? One of the schedules, I'm kind of remembering, or the topic along with it, was payments or something like that, something?
Yes, so, you know, last month, Chairman, we had a discussion on, because when I was going through the budget, I saw a line item for commissioner and Board of Adjustment member compensation. It was $10 per meeting that was being paid. In the ordinance, it states clearly that commission members and Board of Adjustment members are to receive no compensation for service.
Get water.
So when I was preparing the budget, knowing that, I guess I eliminated that from the budget. I reduced the newly consolidated department operating budget by roughly 20% for fiscal year 18-19. And part of that reduction was removing the compensation for meetings for members. I
Still
can.
get the mileage, right?
Mileage reimbursement, any related expenses will surely be reimbursed. It was just the $10 per meeting. I don't know where that, about
Yeah.
you know,
Do you want a refund?
about $1,000 or 15, I forget what was in there, tucked away.
But if it's
for it.
not really allowed, it seems kind of silly that we had it in the first place.
Well, and that was my deal, is that if someone had a recollection of how that started or why, I mean, I have no problem paying it out. We just need to amend the text of the ordinance so
I thought
that.
it was a volunteer deal, and I was surprised when
Yeah,
they started to get like $10 or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I thought it was
I
kinda
agree.
comical, you know,
yeah,
today.
yeah.
But I don't like.
Think of the time that we're here, it's
Yeah.
like
But,
$2 an hour. You know, it's not really compensation in my mind.
no, yeah,
Have a
exactly.
careful, we'll have a union.
Just gotta refigure your budget at home now and take that out.
Yeah.
Don't submit a grievance to AFSCME or whoever represents you.
The mileage we incur for driving, because some of them, it gets significant.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, if there's mileage or, you know, say if there was a conference or if there was, you know, something, a meeting that you had to attend, or, you know, if there are expenses
Decide
related.
to stop at McDonald's on the way up.
Didn't we used to have a meeting with some frequency that somebody from Ohio State University came up and?
That was
They've-
training.
They've done that before, kind of an orientation type deal. I think typically when there's new members, they do that.
We actually have one coming up, and we'll discuss that later on during the staff update, so.
And I've been to them where they've been pretty helpful, and other ones where, well, okay. But, yeah, so it works both ways.
So are we done with that? Item
Yep.
5? We're gonna hold on to the time and the day for the first Monday of the month, and time to
about fireworks policy. Was there something in here that I didn't read? that I should
No,
have read?
real briefly, last year when the fireworks law was passed, it really left jurisdictions scrambling to figure out what to do. By code, it allows cities and counties to, by ordinance, restrict the sale and use of fireworks as determined appropriate by the local zoning bodies and officials. And so I would like to get some direction from the Board of Supervisors on how we can help them come up with some recommendations on the zoning districts in which we allow the sale of fireworks to occur. And if the supervisors would choose, they can also, by ordinance, restrict the time frame from which fireworks are used. So the Iowa Code allows fireworks, the use of fireworks on a certain period of time throughout the year. But, like Sioux City.
They talked about tightening that up already.
Yeah, so, and that might be something that the supervisors don't want to touch. They just might say, you know what, we just want you guys to come up with some recommendations on where we can sell fireworks and in what zoning districts it's appropriate to do so. And they might just, or they might say, hey, maybe hold a public hearing, get input and see what people say about the time frame of when they're allowed to shoot them.
If you were to, say, make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, pick a one that it's allowed in zone, whatever that number would be or designation would that be subject to conditions? I mean, as in, will the potential be that it'll come to us and somebody wants to do it someplace else, or would that be pretty restricted?
Well, so there, I believe, just on the little bit of research that we've done, is one thing that we cannot do is that we cannot completely restrict the use or the sale of them in the county.
But it's something like the adult entertainment industry, it can be restricted to this zoning and, for lack of a better word, not accepted anyplace else.
Correct.
Okay.
So one of my initial knee-jerk reaction at this would be that, we would allow the sale of fireworks to occur in general commercial zoning districts. Probably don't want them in agricultural preservation zoning districts. We don't want them popping up along Highway 20 where
Roadside stands
we
everywhere.
have some issues with, safety turning off of the road. We don't probably, I guess my initial reaction is don't want to feed a lot of retail traffic into a highly industrial area. And, there may be some issues or some concerns from the businesses within the industrial area about having fireworks.
Sales and
What about
storage.
saying that the fireworks are to be sold in an incorporated area, like a town?
So,
That's what I'm getting at.
yeah, so we don't have.
Nothing
Last year, there
going
was
on in
one
the county
on
itself.
Correct, and that operator has come and filed, or made us aware of their intention to fill out a building permit for a permanent structure for, specifically to sell fireworks at that location again. And so, they do. So we need to figure out, where we're gonna allow them and those sorts of things, but.
In the county.
In unincorporated Woodbury County, correct.
So like cell phone towers, every one has to be approved by a conditional use. And, but I don't know if they're necessarily restricted to particular zoning other than that, because they're pop up in the country and
That's it.
Residential, yeah.
So you bring up another thing that we'd like to bring forward to you folks, because actually just in the last almost 2 years, fairly recently, there have been some changes with FCC regulations, and the state of Iowa has finally caught up to amending some code where we need to update that section of our ordinance.
more restrictive or more liberal?
It's really opened up the doors for the telecommunications company
That's
to give them
liberal.
a lot easier environment to, basically, the Iowa law now requires that when these antennas are sited on top of a utility pole, they are exempt from local ordinances.
But they have to sell that to the utilities,
Yeah.
yeah, which is a tough sell for,
That's not very frequent.
Actually, it's called small cell technology, and we've had a number of inquiries down in the Port Neal industrial area. We just actually had someone come into our office to talk to us about our current ordinances, the way they stand, about how this could be implemented out in the county. I know Sioux City started off with one test pool. If you're ever in the neighborhood of Opportunities Unlimited on, what is it, Glen Oaks?
Yeah.
Is that up?
Boulevard?
But- Okay.
So when you drive past there, you'll notice on the corner of their property, there's a black light pole next to a gray light pole. And the black light pole has this small cell antenna device attached to it. But it's so stealth, you would never notice anything different.
Technology's making everything a lot smaller
It's
and
making it a lot
compact.
smaller. They want these things to be closer to the ground, and
Oh.
and so I think Sabre just has a contract with the city to crank out like 60-some of them. And so, long story short, we need to update our ordinances to, you know,
Get ahead of it.
be in line with the Iowa code. And we do have the ability, though, to put some conditions, like perhaps it might be appropriate to allow the sale of fireworks to occur in a light industrial district with a conditional use. But I guess I want the supervisors to say, hey, you know, work on this, you guys, and then, you know, in the office, we'll do all the research. We'll come up with some recommendations. I'd like to get some input from, you know, probably make it a public process, so folks have the opportunity to let you know what they think.
My guess is they've already probably been thinking about it, but have they showed their hand any at all, or are they just? Good.
I think last year they were just kind of like, we don't know. And that's sort of the position that a lot of jurisdictions took.
Well, the season's coming up, and last time
Yeah.
it popped up really quick without
Right.
anybody's control. Now they have the control over it, or at least the time on their side.
Yep.
Where was this, you were saying that somebody wanted to build a permanent?
So,
Where's
on
that?
Highway 20, between Sioux City and Lawton.
Yeah, those storage units on the south side of Highway 20.
Where that subdivision is?
Yeah,
Oh.
Right,
by Cardis Fence,
What zoning area is that, do you know?
general commercial.
Just for selling.
and they had a great big huge tent.
Yeah, there was a gorilla, like an inflatable gorilla.
So just with that one incident, is that something more like what you're looking for, or something more once you want to avoid that, or is that just kind of?
Well, you
To
know,
learn
I
from?
guess it's gonna bring a lot of retail traffic, and so I would like to keep it in an area where it's zoned for for retail traffic. So that's why I wanna get us away from ag preservation, ag estates, and probably the industrial. But I'd like to do some research, and, you know, I guess that's the thing, is that, you know, every city and county is unique, and they have their own perspectives, and so I just wanna make sure that the development of such policies are reflective of the county.
You know, that particular site, I'm thinking about, the entrance into that subdivision on the entrance on the west side met minimum site distance requirements when that was approved.
Yeah, there was someone killed there once.
It's, if I was still in the DOT, I guess I'd be pushing to eliminate that entrance into the site.
Really?
It's almost a hidden entrance, you know, it's not a good deal. But you start putting retail practice or sites, and coming off of US 20, you're talking about somebody's gonna have to add some special lanes out there to pull them off the main line, because main line is supposed to be, that's about a transition between 55 and 65 miles an hour, if they bother to slow down to 55. So you're gonna have to have a free right turn lane, and I don't know what you're gonna have to do the crossovers, and special signing out there. It would be, I think it'd be problematic myself, it would be a bad place for it. But.
Well, that, you know, so the operator at that location last year is,
Yeah, he's gonna go ahead and do this.
Well, they'd be exiting and entering the site off of County Road, right?
No,
Not the,
Of Highway
there's a
20.
county road on the east side, that's
No,
county
but
road.
not, there's no access to the county road to that,
So would Mark,
that where they were selling.
So they're using the first site on the west, that's how they're getting into it? Oh,
would county engineer have any influence on that if it's a state highway?
I would think the DOT and the county could work together.
Huh.
You know, off the top of my head, I'm not really sure of access and how they're gonna, you know, how he's gonna plan that. But I know an application's coming. And so,
The state can be kind of
Building
restricted.
permit, is what you're saying?
and if we don't have anything in our local ordinances,
Right,
then
you can't say
it
no.
defaults to the state, and
Oh.
state law says you have to allow it. Or that it's, you know, that
There's an
it's-
existing drive there now, correct?
No, that's.
There isn't.
He's gonna be, I don't know, because I never went there last
Paid
year.
much attention, but
That is an
Access
entrance.
that,
There's two
that,
entrances.
housing development,
Yeah,
you would turn.
Like
go
a
to that
frontage,
housing
is
development,
there-
And then I think you would take, turn off of that to the west
Right.
to
'Cause
get to where they're.
the state
selling.
can be kind of
But
restrictive.
You still have to turn off Highway 20.
right. And I think the state of Iowa would probably be involved with, it'd be like, if you had a Walmart building out there or something like that, you're gonna have to have some auxiliary lanes or something like that. And you're gonna have, with a site like that, periodically, you're gonna have heavy traffic. And you're gonna have some provisions for auxiliary lanes out there.
Okay.
And I don't know whatever you need for traffic control, it's, like I said, it's a problematic thing, and I think Mark might be, well, is that a county road going in that subdivision, or is that private? Not sure. I don't wanna visit with Mark.
Give you guys something to work on.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got some work to do, but
So
before we
are
just,
supervisors planning on addressing this?
I have it on the agenda for tomorrow.
March 6th.
I would think there'd be some places. What about county parks?
They just closed the interstate.
They're setting off fireworks.
So we're gonna have to tap all of the, you know, relevant county departments for input on this policy.
I don't think I'd be too happy if I went to a county park or a picnic and I'd have some voters out there shooting those.
Must
You
be
know,
I don't
getting
think
bad
a
they
lot
just
of
closed the
people
interstate
too
north of
happy,
Sioux City.
Period, last July 4th, 3rd, 2nd, on.
they should be using.
So I anticipate there will be
Little disruptive.
public input, and, you know, things could get interesting.
You have some public meetings.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't necessarily have to be here. You can go to, when we were doing the planning and zoning meetings and setting up the regs, we met in, Bronson.
Number of rural areas.
We
Met in
went-
Sloan.
Yeah, we went down to Sloan, we went out to, Mobile, and, the people could come in, and we had a lot of people coming, and since it's gonna impact them, you might.
Sure.
might wanna think
If the
of
board
arranging
wants
for
to do
that.
sort of a
That's kind of a count-
traveling town hall style format, we could definitely
I
do
think
that.
that'd be a good.
Supervisors sit table now, right? All right,
Yeah.
perfect. That's a good spot for it.
And you can get their input on location and everything.
So that's, we've got one in the hopper, and just want to let you know, and
That's the staff update you just told us about. On the agenda.
no, so the staff update is that, we do have one of those ISU, zoning official introduction to zoning, workshop. We will send you the invitation. Dan, do you remember what date it is? I believe it's
It's Monday, the 26th.
March 26th? Okay. If you would like, so that would be not on a regular scheduled meeting, would it? That'd be on the zoning.
Would be on
Doesn't
the
work for you,
zoning
huh?
commission.
So if members would like to attend,
Competition, you don't
we'll
want
pay
that.
for
Yeah, I'd
the
rather.
registration
Push.
fee.
No, these are in the
Did you
evening
guys have-
typically, they
Did you guys
are.
bring a
Yeah.
registration, or did we handle it down?
Say, these typically are in the evening too, aren't they?
Yeah, they
Evening
are.
or afternoon?
I think it's usually held down at like, the,
Benoit and Bev's.
Hilton Garden.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Bev's.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'll have to skip it this year.
It's worthwhile. You
Yeah,
can do it.
I've done it twice,
Yeah.
and I would go again, but I can't that night.
You
so,
can.
yeah. I would, but I can't.
Anything else, somebody want to comment on or bring up? Board?
That's about it. If you guys ever have any, feedback or recommendations on something that you'd like us to take a look at or work on, let us know.
I'm going to make a suggestion. I think it goes towards Dan. Page numbers.
What's that?
Page numbers, reference. Yeah,
Say word there.
That's not too much of a click.
That's all I have for you.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Diane made the motion, Katie's
I'll second.
seconded.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're gone.
Just for future reference, if the weather gets nasty, I think that like if they closed the courthouse and sent home folks early, that's kind of a no-brainer that we're gonna close and not have a meeting. But going forward, I'll probably just work with the chairman and take your temperature to see if you wanna, hold a meeting or not, if we have some weather issues.
How does the courthouse work? A lot of doctors and other places around town, the schools around, those places are closed. When they cancel schools. The
It-
courthouse doesn't.
It depends. The county supervisor chair makes the call on when we close, if we close.
Okay.
And it has not followed necessarily what the Sioux City School District is doing, so.
I called John, when I called her, it was snowing up pretty hard, and then it quit. Then it started up again.
Yeah. But, well, thank you for making the trek in from so far out of town.